Right, folks, I'm joined now on the line, the lead singer of Helix, Brian Vollmer. Welcome to Firebrand Rock Radio.
Thanks for having me, Dan.
I'll tell you, it's a real pleasure to get to speak to you. He says, putting his teeth back in. Been a fan for a long, long time. And it's got to be said, the new album is absolutely superb.
Thank you very much. We put our heart and soul into this one, and I had a very good team. You're only as good as your team.
Sure.
And right from the producer to the artwork to the guys playing on the record to Sean Kelly playing guitar, everybody was just superb.
Well, it's nice to see that you're still working with Sean, and the two of you obviously collaborated really well on this album.
Sean and I started writing about 2008 on the Vagabond Bones album, and it's a relationship that's really developed over time, and we write very quickly, and but we have a great relationship and a great vibe happening between us. Sean is now with 4x8 with Stet Howland and a couple other superstars that I'm sure you've heard of.
Indeed. Well, going forward with the band, obviously you are really pushing the new album and obviously promoting yourselves very hard on Facebook at the moment. Is Facebook something you find a good tool to get the message across?
Yes, but it's only still one avenue we look at. I work with Tom Mathers and Paris Records, who's distributing the record in the United States and Europe, and he's constantly trying to get us interviews, and I email just friends. We sell the CD through eBay at gigs, so we play live. So, Facebook works very well for us, but we also push many other avenues.
One person who I have had on the show and is a very good friend of mine is Mr. Greg Fraser, of course, who collaborated with you within Helix at one time.
Yes, Fraser was in the band, I believe, during the 90s.
Are you going out on tour to promote this album, and is there any chance of us seeing you guys over in Europe at any time?
Well, we just got back from Spain. We played in Barcelona, Madrid, and Pamplona last week. And we're putting together another tour for October, which is primarily Scandinavia, but I think they're also trying to get dates in the UK, Germany, some of the Benelux countries.
It'd be great to get you guys into UK. I mean, as for Scandinavia, as I've said on many occasions, I mean, that is a hotbed of rock music at the moment.
Well, that's great to hear.
I think you're going to be pleasantly surprised because there is so much great music coming out of Scandinavia. I mean, they've really sort of relaunched the whole rock scene in Europe. I mean, that's how much I think they've influenced things.
Well, I find Europe overall a lot better than North America, which is controlled mostly by what people hear on the radio. And over here, it's very flash in the pan. I find too, the flavor of the week. Whereas Europe, the fans are very loyal. And when we went to Spain last week, they remembered us from the Kiss tour. Well, that was 1983, for God's sake. So they follow the music, I think, a lot more in Europe. It's a different scene for sure.
What's the scene like in Canada? Because obviously, such a vast country. It's must be obviously difficult touring there.
Well, there's a difficulty in touring just because of the actual physical miles between the gigs. You could play as many dates in Ohio as you could in all of Canada. But the song Even Jesus from our new disc is about how you can be loved everywhere else but your hometown, and you can take that as being my actual hometown of London, Ontario, or in some respects Canada. I've said for a while that Canada eats its young to an extent, and it's true. An American band come play Toronto and the place will be packed, and a Canadian band of the same stature will play there and it'll be friggin' empty. So, I don't know, you're left scratching your head.
I was going to say, what's the reason for that? I mean, it's not like Canadians don't like rock music, is it?
Well, we're strong in some places in Canada, but we struggle in the east here around Ontario. But in Western Canada, we still do very well. We're going out there in August. We're playing with an old Canadian band called Kenny Shields and Streetheart. And
Streetheart. Oh, wow, absolutely.
If these bands or not. And then we go play the Century Casino in Edmonton and then Lethbridge, Alberta. So, but, Toronto and the surrounding area tends to be more trendy.
Right. One thing I did notice on the release that came with the album is great to see that you guys are actually booked on next year's Monster of the Rock cruise.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure we're going to end up on that tour. I haven't heard from Larry Moreland, who does the tour lately, but he's told me that he's going to bring us back, so hopefully he's good for his word.
I mean, I'd love to get myself over for that cruise. I mean, I've got friends, both as musicians and just general friends who've been on the cruise, and it looks an absolutely fabulous time, and a great lineup of bands that they have every time. That's
true, and it's a lot different from the boat cruises I've been on in Europe. There seems to be a direct emphasis on drinking on the European cruises, whereas you don't see that in the American MOR cruise at all. You know, you'd be hard pressed to find anybody that looks like they're loaded. It's mostly an emphasis on music and just catching the rays and having a good time. And I think the last 2 times we went from Fort Lauderdale to the Bahamas. And there's always a great band to see, and everybody's mingling quite freely on the boat. Food's good. The cabins are beautiful. It's just a great atmosphere all the way around.
Sounds fantastic. No doubt, probably the British will probably be drinking the bar. It's just that they're hiding it well, I would guess. Well, it's going to be... Sorry, Brian, go ahead.
The rock tour, I know they clean the showers out at the end of the tour for barf.
Going forward from this, obviously... Yeah, I'm really pushing things forward because obviously the album is literally just coming out, and obviously the release date is literally in a matter of days, on the 27th of May, I do believe.
Yes.
Are you a band that straight away start writing for a new album? Are you a band that can write on the road, or are you someone who likes to lock yourself away and sort of work either in solitude, or obviously in this case, where obviously as we already mentioned, with your cohort?
Well, writing's changed for us quite a bit over the years. You know, in the early days of the band, we get the band together in a practice hall and we jam out something until something came out of it. But nowadays, because I write with Sean Kelly, and the reason I ended up with Sean Kelly was, back in the early 90s, Brent had left the band, Paul was killed tragically in a car accident. Yeah. Those 2 guys were my main writing partners, so I went through many years searching for a suitable person to write with, and until I ended up with Sean. And when Sean and I write, basically I drive down to Toronto, and I only spend about 2-3 hours at his place, and we'll come up with 3 or 4 different ideas, and then we'll send them back and forth through email, and we'll fine-tune them a little bit, and then we'll get back together, take them a little bit further until we feel they're finished. And then once we get them to the point where we feel that we've taken them as far as we can take them, then we'll have a practice with Fritz and Daryl, and they'll what I call Helix size them.
Right.
We'll work on the arrangements and just the bass and drum parts, and take them a little bit further. And usually our producer, Aaron Murray, comes down and tapes things, and he adds his 2 cents worth. And then from there, we'll listen to him for a couple of weeks, and then we'll take him into the studio. And in the studio, even they'll even grow further once we start adding stuff. So it's a long process, and it's quite different from 25 years ago.
How much input does Aaron have as a producer on the final sound of the album?
Excuse me, say that again.
How much input does Aaron have on the final sound of the album?
I think he has quite a bit. You know, I view him as being cutting edge of where production is going. Aaron Murray was a student of Danny Broadbeck's, who produces Dolores O'Riordan, and Danny Broadbeck was a student of Jack Richardson, who produced the Guess Who, Alice Cooper. So there's a great lineage of producers there. As you're assembling a team, as I said before, when you hire people, you're hiring them for their expertise. So I don't try to keep people on a short leash. I let them go and let them be creative. And there's been times when I went, geez, I don't know if I like where he's going with this, but I've given him a little bit of rope, and it's always turned out to be a good thing. So, it's a trust that builds just from the more you work with a person.
Well, it's good to say the production on this album is excellent, because it's nothing worse than getting an album where the musicianship and the tracks are great, only to be let down by really bad production.
Yes.
But the production on this is really superb. It's got such a clear sound to it. One question I will ask you, which I ask everybody, and I get absolutely lambasted by most of the listeners, is this album going to be coming out on vinyl? Do you know at all, Brian?
I don't know. Vinyl's kind of expensive to put it out because you're dealing with less units. But it's always something you looked at. It's funny you mention that because I was just talking with Tom Mathers today from Paris Records. I think before I put this album out in vinyl, I'd probably go put out the Christmas album we had in vinyl.
Right.
You know what I mean? So there'd be a pecking order there because right now I own about 10 or 11 Helix albums myself outside of the Capital EMI catalog, which is now owned by Universal.
Oh, right, okay. One last question I'm going to ask you is obviously another project that you're working on at the moment, which obviously involves the word ice in the title.
The word what?
Ice in the title.
Ice?
Yeah, I believe. Are you?
Metal and ice.
Yes, that's exactly what I was referring to. Can you just tell us a little bit about sort of the background, exactly what it is?
Well, Sean Kelly, my writing partner, got a book deal, and he wanted to write a book about Canadian heavy metal / rock acts from the 80s that influenced his career. And so Helix was prominently talked about in the book, as was Killer Dwarfs, Lee Aaron, the Headpins, Kick-Axe, bands like that. And the book went to the top of the bestseller list on Indigo. And at that point, they decided, his management company, Coalition Management, decided to do an album, a 7-song album, where they had a house band play the hits of those bands that were being talked about in the book, and they brought in the original singers to re-sing the songs. So there's actually, I got the album right in front of me here. It's we're doing Heavy Metal Love. Lee Aaron was brought in to sing Metal Queen. Nick Walsh from Sick Toxic sang the Kick-Axe song On the Road to Rock. Carl Dixon from Coney Hatch sang Hey Operator. Darby Mills from the Headpins sang Don't It Make You Feel Like Dancing. And Russ from the Killer Dwarfs sang Keep the Spirit Alive. And then there was a song that Nick and Sean wrote called Metal on Ice. And Metal on Ice has a double meaning to it. Not only is it a reference to Canadian bands and ice, because it's cold up here, but Sean's dad and his uncle were big hockey players. I think his uncle was actually in the NHL at one point, so it's kind of a side reference to that.
Well, I was going to say, because you guys do take your ice hockey rather seriously.
Yes, we do. But then you take football seriously, right?
Well, some of us do. I'm going to put my hand up and say I'm not a football fan, and I'm already sick to death of all the World Cup stuff that's all over the TV at the moment. I tend to air more towards motorsport myself.
We were in Spain when Madrid won there, so...
Oh, yes, I can imagine. Well, Brian, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on. Great to talk to you. And I say, love the album. You've already whet my appetite on the Metal on Ice album. One very last question I'm going to slip in. Do you know when that's going to be available?
The Metal on Ice album?
Yeah.
Well, I actually talked to Tom Mathers at Paris Records today, and I'm hooking him and Sean Kelly up, and they're going to see if they can hammer out some type of a deal to get distribution on that disc throughout the United States and Europe. So...
That would be superb.
It's up to them. I step aside from that.
Well, maybe a few emails and a bit of a campaign on Facebook, maybe to get this thing rolling, because the sound of those tracks, I say it's certainly an album I'd love to get my hands on.
Yeah, well, I'm hoping it's going to come out. I help Sean as much as I can with any project. He does so much for me, Sean Kelly. He's a nice guy. He's a great guitar player, absolutely great guitar player, and I'm happy and proud that he's my writing partner.
Excellent stuff. Brian, a real pleasure. Thanks ever so much for taking time out to speak to me today. And the best of luck with this release and obviously the future of the band.
Thanks a lot, Dan. I appreciate you having me, and I'd like to thank all our fans in England for the support and whoever else might be listening to this in other countries.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.